No one can pinpoint the exact moment when the dungeon came into existence. It simply imposed itself on the world, as something that never needed to ask permission. When the first stories emerged, they spoke of a bottomless pit, a hostile space that swallowed anyone who dared to enter. But these stories didn't explain everything. They never did. Because the dungeon is not just dangerous. It is coherent. From the shallowest levels to the most unreachable depths, there is a silent logic at work. A progression. A rhythm. As if each step down were calculated to measure human limits with cruel precision. Too much strength attracts greater challenges.
Too much fear invites death.
Hesitation is punished without mercy. This raises a question that few dare to ask. Who defined these rules? If it were just a natural phenomenon, it would be chaotic. If it were just a mistake of the world, it would be unstable. But the dungeon persists. It regenerates. It adapts to those who challenge it. It learns from defeats. It adjusts its monsters. It changes its ways. Like something that attentively observes every attempt at conquest. Some believe the dungeon is an inheritance.
A vestige left by an era where gods and mortals still vied for control of the world.
Others say it is a containment, a seal that keeps something terrible trapped in the depths, something that should never reach the surface. And there are the most unsettling, who claim that the dungeon is not holding anything. It is waiting. Each adventurer who descends carries ambition, despair, or hope. And the dungeon accepts them all, without distinction. Not because it is just, but because it is indifferent. It doesn't hate humans. It analyzes them. It tests how far they will go when survival conflicts with the desire to go further. And perhaps that is the most frightening thing. The dungeon rewards precisely those who risk too much. It fuels the cycle. It gives power, fame, and glory, as long as you keep descending. As long as you keep offering something in return. Blood, loss, memories, companions. If you've ever felt this unease, this feeling that something is too wrong to ignore, then you understand why these stories are so captivating. And if this kind of deep dive calls to you, it's worth sticking around. Leave a like, subscribe, not as an empty gesture, but as a sign that you also want to go deeper. Because what comes next isn't superficial. It never is. In the end, perhaps the dungeon is a test left to the world. Not to measure physical strength, but to answer a simple and cruel question. What do humans do when there are no limits? They descend. They always descend. And the deeper they go, the harder it becomes to distinguish whether they are exploring the dungeon, or whether the dungeon is exploring them. Perhaps the origin of the dungeon isn't at the bottom. Perhaps it's in the reason why no one can stop going in. Because some doors don't exist to be closed. They exist to reveal who we are, when there is no more light.